Okay, my setup and tips on the FlyBear SBACH 342. Now, I have posted my setup in another video, so I'm just going to go over that quickly in this video because I'm going to start providing these as downloadable PDF documents, these setup files, on TinkerzLab. So I will try and make these available every time I get an aircraft set up and flying exactly the way I want it. So I've got this plane set. It's a fantastic flying little micro brushless plane. Mine is 200 grams all up weight. It has unlimited vertical. It's very aerobatic. It's very stable. And so I've got some tips here that I want to give you. I'll go over the setup quickly, but there's a link to the setup file in the show notes if you choose to download it and keep it for reference. Okay, so here we go. All right, so I have the bind and fly version, and the bind and fly version requires an external SBUS or PPM receiver, so it's really a plug and fly version, not really a bind and fly version. But it has two receiver ports. One is 5 volts, one is 3 volts. The gyro uses channel 5 for 6G and 3D mode. In 6G mode, the aircraft is just rock solid. In 3D mode, it really acts more like a 3-axis gyro. And so you got a lot of gyro input in 3D mode, but it does not restrict you in any way. And that makes it really fun. And you can fly this plane in a very small area. All right, so the control surface deflection on this plane, it's got one of those gyros that doesn't activate until you actuate the throttle. So once you actuate the throttle, then the gyro will be active. So my control surface deflection is measured before the gyro is activated. So before you apply throttle to activate the gyro. So it's more like a manual mode at that point, with the control surface movement. And I measure the deflection opposite the control horns. All right, so here's all my linkage set up. I will leave this for you guys to take a look at. If you download the document, it's got my dual rate on my aileron, elevator, and rudder, the amount of expo I have, and more importantly, it has the amount of control surface deflection that I have on each one of those control surfaces. So you've got my linkage, you got my control surface movement set up. With this information, you'll be able to set this plane up and have it flying the way I have it flying on any programmable transmitter. All right, so the specified CG is 30 millimeters from the leading edge of the wing at the outer wing edge. Mine is further back. Mine is 44 millimeters from the leading edge of the wing. So I'm 14 millimeters further back than what they have specified, and I like that with a neutral balance at that CG point. I even give you my launch throttle. So these setup documents, they may not match your flying style. The setups that I have match my flying style. But it gives you a great starting point so that you will have a successful, drama-free maiden flight on any of these planes that you use my setups for. Okay, so anyway, there's a link to that. You can download it in the show notes. Now what I want to take a look at is, once I get these aircraft set up and flying the way I want them to fly and handle the way I want them to handle, I like to tinker with them to see if I can make them better. So one of the things I like about this aircraft is it has a standard multi-rotor motor in it. It's a 2205 motor. I don't know what the KV is, but it's a pretty torquey little motor. It has a standard 5 millimeter prop shaft. So you can use any prop on this plane that has a standard 5 millimeter hub. So I have started testing some different props in it. So we'll take a look at those. One of the props that I use, that I flew it with, was it's called an Ocday, OCDAY. It was a 6045 ABS prop. It looked nearly identical to the stock prop on this plane. I couldn't find them anymore though, so I don't have it listed here, but I wanted to tell you about it in case you have one in your inventory. Okay, so it's got a standard 5 millimeter hub. The profile of the prop blades looked identical to the stock prop. It It fit on the shaft just fine, and also I was able to put the spinner on it without any modification to the spinner. It seemed to me like I got the exact same level of performance and flight time with that prop than I did with the stock prop. So there's no markings on the stock prop, but I have an idea of what that prop is. And I've got a question mark here for a 6045. I think that this prop is an HQ 6043 polycarbonate prop. It looks identical to an HQ 6043 polycarbonate prop. So even though it doesn't have any markings on it, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So an HQ 6043 prop, polycarbonate prop, I think will fit on there, and I think that the spinner will go on that prop without any modification, and I think that prop will be a direct replacement for the stock prop. All right, so the Gemfan Flash 6042, I tested it with this prop. I couldn't tell any difference in the performance and the flight time. It seemed to be right on par with the stock prop. The only con or downside to using the Gemfan Flash is I can't get the spinner on it without modifying the spinner, and I didn't want to do that. So I'm probably not going to use that prop. But I have a Gemfan LR 7035, a Gemfan long range 7035 prop mounted on that plane now, and the spinner will go over that prop without any modifications. I think that 7035 is going to be just as good as that stock 6043 prop. It may actually provide a little more power and a little more flight time. So as soon as I have calmer winds where I can go out and test it with that prop on it, I'm going to go out and test it with that prop. I'm going to fly it the same way I would normally fly it with a stock prop on it, see how much power it has, see how much voltage I have remaining in the cells after I land. But I'm pretty sure that that's going to work as a direct replacement for the stock prop too. So I will let you know for sure. Once I get the testing done on that. Okay, so now what I want to show you is I want to show you a video, because what I discovered with this plane the last time I had it out was I spoke about it earlier. It's one of those planes where the gyro does not activate until you give it throttle. So I always make sure that I activate the throttle before I go walk out to launch it, to make sure that all the control surfaces are moving the way they should with the gyro. But with this plane, when you leave it on its wheels and you have it in fully stabilized mode, it tends to, especially when you slow down, it tends to pull that nose up. So what I wanted to do was see that if I raise that tail up, when I plugged the battery in and I had the tail lifted up a little bit. So I lifted the tail up a little bit, I plugged the battery in, and then while I still have the tail lifted up, I actuated the throttle to activate the gyro. And then when I launched it, I noticed that it didn't do that nose up attitude when I slowed down with it in fully stabilized mode. So I wanted to tell you about that, because to me, I think it flies better, and it makes it easier to land in fully stabilized mode when it's not pulling that nose up like that. So anyway, that's the tips I wanted to give you about the gyro, and also about the different props I've tested with it so far, the props that I've tested that you can use without having to modify the spinner. So don't forget, there's a link to the setup file in the show notes. So, and look for future, video releases on TinkerzLab, where I'll have those. I'll have future setup files available for you guys to download. So anyway, that's a wrap on this episode. Stay tuned, and I'll see you next time in the TinkerzLab.